Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:07. It's O'Connor and Company Monday morning, and I'm telling you right now, we don't have enough time. Can you alert Chris Plant and let him know that we're gonna go over? Tell him now. Give him notice. 4 hours is not enough for this news cycle and for the insanity that's going on in this country. 6:35. We'll talk to Tom Fitton. Hey, remember Friday when they released the Biden interview tapes that they've been hiding from people like Judicial Watch with their FOIA requests? All right, we'll get into that. Also, some other issues in the news with Tom Fitton. 7:05, Joe DeGeneva. I mean, we could give him the whole hour. 7:35, Tim Holbert, president of American Veterans Center. Memorial Day is a week from today, as well as the Memorial Day Parade coming up. We'll talk about that. And 8:05, this big, beautiful bill is working its way through committee right now. There's some resistance from Republicans. If it's going to pass, if you're going to get the Donald Trump tax cuts that were promised you on Election Day, it's got to go through the House Freedom Caucus. That means it's got to go through the House Freedom Caucus chairman. That's Andy Harris, and he'll join us at 8:05. I'm Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning. I'm exhausted already. Looking at all the news this weekend, I thought, stop everybody. Just stop it already. Mexico invaded.
On women. Yes, the Mexican Navy invades New York. We can go on and on and on.
I know.
But we need to start with the big story that broke late yesterday afternoon, early evening, and that is the announcement that former President Joe Biden has been diagnosed with what's called an aggressive form of prostate cancer. By all reports, this seems to be a type of cancer or the stage of cancer that has been, it's been characterized by a Gleason score of 9, grade group 5, with metastasis. I always have trouble with that word.
It's spreading.
Metastasis to the bone already.
Yes.
It's incredibly aggressive, but it also suggests that this is, from most scientific and medical observations, this announced diagnosis is the kind of thing that most probably was detected quite some time ago. We will get into that in a few moments. First and foremost, a man has cancer and is facing death, the very real reality of death, or at the very least, an incredibly invasive and traumatic treatment process that will put him through hell and put his family through hell. And as a man who has just lost his father of a very similar age to President Biden, I give him my greatest sympathies on a personal level and prayers for him and his family. His wife is going to go through a lot. His children are going to go through a lot. Even when you're an adult and you lose your father, you lose your grandfather, it's awful. And so our best to the Biden family as they go through this. The Biden White House lied about this. There is no doubt that the people who worked in the Biden administration, including his wife, who is now grieving even further, including his children, including the people who are charged with telling the American people the truth about their government, there is no doubt in my mind, and for that matter, in most people's minds observing this situation, that they lied about this. They kept this from the American people. There is more than enough evidence at this point to suggest that there is no possible way that this president in particular, whose health was under great scrutiny, Julie Gunlock, there is no way that the basic indicators of prostate cancer that all men know about now, based on most prostate checks now can be taken care of with a blood test to see your PSA levels. There is no possible way, based on what I'm hearing now, and I have heard no contrary evidence, that the medical team treating the president and diagnosing the president didn't know about this. And it's just add this to the list of things that they lied about.
Let's talk about that list, Larry. Sometimes when I'm feeling down, I like to go over the list, and it lifts me up a little. They lied about COVID. They lied about mail-in ballots. They lied about Hunter's laptop. They lied about the election. They lied about Biden's brain. They lied about Biden signing documents and who was in control of the White House, who was actually acting as president. And now they lied about this cancer. So, yes, thoughts and prayers, all of that, right? I hope,
of course,
for the comfort of his family.
we're allowed to have sympathy
but this
for
is
somebody on a
another
human
lie.
level. Yeah.
This is another lie, and there's been some really interesting commentary about that on Twitter from people who say, wait a minute, this is a guy, this isn't like, look, average guy, maybe doesn't get the best preventative care, maybe
Right.
skips a checkup.
Yeah.
And
Not the president.
this is a president who but also was under scrutiny because of his health.
Right.
So, according to them, he was under constant care, constant checkups. Right. Oh no, his doctor confirms that he's fit as a fiddle. So this again, yet another thing that doesn't pass the smell test.
No, it doesn't. It stinks to high heaven. It stinks like you're driving past a cow pasture is what it stinks like. And then there's the timing of it. What has transpired in the last 48 hours before this public announcement Sunday night, or for that matter, for the past week. Well, let's go back for a week. Jake Tapper's duplicitous book about the sudden revelation that, oh gosh, it looks like Biden wasn't fit to serve. Although they never even go that far to say that. They just say that he shouldn't have run again, which is still the most laughable thing. If he wasn't fit to run for office, he wasn't fit to be in office, number one. But that's been revealed, and now Tapper says, well, the White House lied, which is where that's not true. The White House didn't lie because buildings can't lie. The White House is a building. Right. It's people who work in the White House. So give us some names here, pal. But of course they won't do that. But that put extra scrutiny on the lies that the Biden administration told about the capabilities and the wherewithal of Joe Biden as president of the United States. Then on Friday, the Robert Hur interview, that's the U.S. attorney who was interviewing Joe Biden for his criminal handling of classified documents. You forgot that in the lies. They lied about the classified documents, too. And by the way, that opens up all the lies they told about Donald Trump that you missed in your list. The lie after lie after lie about Donald Trump having classified documents, Donald Trump needing an FBI raid, Donald Trump getting a special prosecutor, all of that, and January 6th and everything, all the lies. But on Friday, they released the audio of the U.S. Attorney's interview with Donald Trump, because the one lie that kept being repeated over and over again that Jake Tapper hones in on his lamentably stupid book is that all of these people who worked in the White House and all of the high-ranking Democrat officials in the party, elected officials, would go on camera and say, well, in private, one-on-one, he's sharp as a tack. When what you're seeing on the cameras, that's not the Joe Biden I work with every day. Well, the Robert Hur audio tapes revealed exactly who that Donald Trump, who that Joe Biden is.
And revealed it was worse.
He's worse behind closed doors.
Exactly.
He's worse when he's one-on-one.
Because don't forget, there was all this talk of pumping him full of caffeine or sort of adrenaline, or giving him a shot right before they pushed him out on stage to give him that a little bit of oomph. Certainly didn't have his shots before meeting with her because, just grueling.
So that was the timing involved. That's everything that led up to last night's announcement of a cancer diagnosis that every single medical professional commenting on it last night said, well, there's no way they just found this out. They've had to know this for months, if not years, which leads us to the lie. And if you'll remember, several years ago, he made a verbal gaffe, we were told, when he suggested he had cancer. We'll play that for you, and we'll also play exactly why we think this announcement was made last night, because they want all that other stuff we've been talking about to be silenced. They don't want us to say things. They're trying to shut you up again. They're trying to shut me up again, and it's not going to work.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
So CNN is covering this story yesterday, and as usual, when CNN is talking about Democrats, Joe Biden, and his health and anything else that could potentially damage their political party, they're not really covering it. They're covering it up. They pretend like they're reporting the news and doing analysis. So within an hour of the announcement that Joe Biden is suffering from a major, aggressive, well-advanced stage of prostate cancer, they have David Axelrod on. David Axelrod, longtime political analyst and advisor, and of course the architect of the Obama-Biden campaigns that won the White House. And I don't know about you. I'm in the business of broadcasting. I'm in the business of interviewing people on breaking stories. The question that this teleprompter reader asks David Axelrod is probably the very last question that would ever come to mind. Reporting on the advanced stage of cancer for not just a former president, but the man who was president just 3 months ago. Right. But listen to the question.
His medical condition now, his announced medical condition now, do you believe that silences or delays a lot of conversations about his, last year and a half of his presidency for now?
Who even asks that question? Hey, now that we know that he has cancer, do you think we should stop asking questions as to whether his brain was working?
It's almost like she's asking permission. Like,
yeah.
You think it's okay? Is it okay that we keep asking questions about the biggest political scandal to ever hit our country?
Thank you.
Wild.
You can't ask those questions. And by the way, of course, as this was teed up beautifully for David, he did what any good, loyal Democrat would do. He said, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, I think those conversations are going to happen, but they should be more muted and set aside for now as he's struggling through this.
There you go, Julie. You've gotten your orders from CNN and all the real journalists around town. They're going to tut us if we dare to challenge Biden's abilities when he was president, and even more importantly, the people who are still in office right now, and one of them who has a television show on MSNBC every night, who lied about all of it and covered it all up. Are you going to stay quiet? Are you going to stop asking questions, Julie?
You know what this is? This is the stutter. This is the new thing. How dare you? Remember when Tapper attacked Laura Trump saying, how do kids with a stutter feel? Right. So now it's going to be like, how do cancer patients feel when you're attacking Biden? You think a lot of people with prostate cancer would appreciate this line of questioning? This is the new stutter.
It is well understood from anyone who ever had to struggle with a stutter or has children that have stutters that it does, in fact, affect your ability to be honest with the American people if you have a medical condition. So how dare you?
But again,
cut two here. We've got a urologist last night on News Nation. This is an expert on prostate cancer, Dr. Schusterman. Go ahead.
The fact that he was a former president, he had intensive, state-of-the-art, care where we can see prostate cancer, 10 years in the past. So this is, it's very unusual to hear that someone has prostate cancer where they're annually being followed up. And the fact that we just find it at a Gleason 9 is just pretty much unheard of in this day and age of medicine.
Unheard of. And that's if someone's getting checked up every month. Something tells me he may have been checked up every 6 months. I want to investigate that. That said, so it's unheard of. So in other words, here's a urologist saying there's hardly any possibility that this person did not know quite some time ago. Here's Joe Biden, 2022, an appearance in Delaware talking about environmental regulations and how they relate to cancer. Listen.
You know what was happening? You had to put on your windshield wipers to get literally the oil slick off the window. That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer.
That's why I have cancer, because by the way, that was a lie. It had nothing to do with the oil refineries. Right. But, Julie, we were told at the time that was a gaffe. Oh, it was a slip of the tongue. You know Joe.
Yep.
You know Joe. And by the way, knowing that his brain was mashed potatoes, we sort of went along with that. But now, again, compelling questions have to be asked. In 2022, did Joe Biden know that he had cancer?
That's right. Look, I will say this. I don't think that they have changed the play here. I think this was always the plan. I think that he gets elected, and then just around this time, he announces the cancer. Kamala takes over. This was the plan all along. The fact that he had to bail out because his brains were mashed potatoes complicated things, but they're still on the same path. They're still operating in the same way, and this was planned all along.
Yeah, listen, it's good speculation. There's no way to know it until somebody actually starts telling the truth, and I'm not holding my breath for that. It's 5:24.
Coming up, we have more on Biden. Gosh, there is so much to cover, but we'll talk about those her audio tapes. Friday night, the Trump administration released the audio of Biden, struggling to answer the most basic questions. You don't want to miss it. Keep it here. It's 5:30.
WMAL FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:37. It's O'Connor and Company, and we are just getting started. We're raring to go, in fact. Coming up at 6:35, Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch, I think, will join our pile-on here as we are just fed the freak up with the lies and the obfuscation and the bullying and intimidation that we can't point out when we're being lied to. Sorry. Let me finish teasing the rest of the show, and then I'll get into it. At 7:05, Joe DeGenova. Oh, he'll be ready as well. At 7:35, we'll talk about Memorial Day coming up and the Memorial Day Parade with the president of the American Veterans Center. And then at 8:05, Congressman Andy Harris, as the House is currently in the process of trying to pass the big, beautiful bill, which is really a tax cut. They should start calling it the big, beautiful tax cut because no one cares about a bill. I mean, except for our boss and friend, Bill Hess. We care about him. And he's not big, but he's beautiful. I'm Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock. And, by the way, not just beautiful Bill Hess, but brand new inductee into the Hall of Fame at his high school. His high school had him in for the over the last several days, and they did a big celebration to induct the legendary Bill Hess into his high school Hall of Fame.
Now that is well deserved. How wonderful.
Usually a person has to reach a certain age to get, and he hasn't. No, and that's what I'm saying. It's like he's so young, and it's like, wow. It's like,
I thought it's so typical of you to manage to, weave in an insult into this happy moment, but no,
excuse me, that's typical of him, not me. You're confusing us. He's constantly. Anyway, congratulations to the big, beautiful Bill Hess. On Friday, so this is interesting the way this came out. The Hur tapes. This would be Robert Hur, the U.S. attorney who is investigating the criminality of Joe Biden's mishandling of classified documents over many, many years. Let's not forget, some of these documents come from when he was in the Senate. He had no business removing them from federal property, let alone having them in a cardboard box next to his Corvette where his crackhead son was going in and out of the garage. That's where these documents were being held. And Mr. Hur was investigating and had a deposition with President Trump. It was this deposition that basically cleared Biden of any criminal charges, not because he didn't violate the law. No. He did. But Mr. Hur has to bring charges if he thinks there is a credible possibility that a jury would actually convict the alleged criminal. And in this case, he determined that there was no jury who would because of the president's state of mind, because he was so feeble-brained that he had no memory. He couldn't even remember when his son died. And so Robert Hur said, we're not going to bring any charges up. Well, Axios, of all publications, one of the websites who covered up for the Biden White House.
Which is also, just really quickly, the co-author with Jake Tapper on that book, okay? He worked for Axios.
Alex Thompson, who won an award for his coverage of Biden's illness. They got a hold of a good chunk of this audio. I was filling in for Mark Levin Friday night when this audio broke, so you heard it here first, actually. The producers of Levin were saying, hey, we had this before Fox had it. This is great. We were running it for the WMAL listeners here. Here's a little bit of what it sounded like. Cut 3.
Bo, I used to go home on the train in the period that I was still in the Senate.
Anyway.
There you go. By the way, this long 3-minute rambling answer about going home on the train when he was in the Senate and his son dying in 2017 when his son died in 2015 and on and on and on. The question from Mr. Hur was, where did you keep your documents after you were in the office of vice president? And nothing in the rambling answer even addressed the question at hand, which was, where do you keep your documents? This is such an indictment. And again, as we just mentioned, Julie, the one thing Kamala Harris and Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and Karine Jean-Pierre and Pete Buttigieg and anybody else in a position of power or influence told us for those 4 years was, behind the scenes, in meetings, one-on-one, he's sharp as a tack. Well, there's a glimpse as to how sharp Joe Biden was in private behind closed doors.
The thing that also people need to remember is just how that administration smeared Robert Hur. I mean, said he was a Republican, he was a tool of the right, he was a plant, he was out to get Biden, and also there were personal attacks. Like, how dare he ask about Biden's son? There was that kind of flavor that went with it, like that he's also a bad human being, an uncaring, cruel human being. The attacks on Robert Hur were both on his professional life and personal life. It was sickening what they did to Robert Hur, and it turns out he was nice. He was nice to Biden.
Oh, he are you kidding? He bent overboard. The evening that these tapes were released, and it caused a fire. Excuse me, not the tapes. The evening that Mr. Hur's report came out,
yes,
describing Mr. Biden in an honest fashion, Joe Biden called a hastily thrown together press conference at the White House to show his anger that and during it he said, and then he brought up my son Beau. How dare he? How dare he talk about? He didn't bring up his son Beau. Joe Biden brought up his son. They do this all the time. Where did you keep your records? Well, my son Beau, I loved him so much he died of cancer. Wanting to get sympathy, which, by the way, Joe Biden's cancer announcement of yesterday certainly falls into that playbook too, right?
Yep.
Biden's under scrutiny. Biden's being criticized. Biden looks like a fraud. Hey, Biden has cancer. I mean, this is the playbook every
time.
Single freaking time. And this is just, I'm sorry, there needs to be a full investigation of all the president's men and women who ran this White House. And I keep hearing, Biden had good days and bad days. Well, who was in charge on the bad days? Because you can't put off decisions when you're president of the United States. Every single bad day that Joe Biden had, we had boys and girls, young men and women in uniform in harm's way overseas. And they deserved a commander-in-chief. 543.
WMAL, making sense of mainstream media because the double standard is real. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
It is now 5:49, and I've got more on the Hur tapes. Here's a little bit more. Cut 6 here. This is the moment where, again, the question is, after you were vice president, you had a home at Chainbridge Road, right, just across the Potomac, right, just right near the studio here, WMAL. And you had the Biden Center, you had the Penn Center, you also were working on your book. Where did you keep your files? That was the question. Here's cut 6.
Where did you keep papers that related to those things that you were actively working on?
Well, I don't know. This is what, 2017, 18, that area?
Yes, sir.
Remember, in this time frame, my son is either been deployed or is dying. And so it was, and by the way, there were still a lot of people at the time when I got out of the Senate that were encouraging me to run in this period, except the president. That's not a mean thing to say. I mean, he just thought that she had a better shot of winning the presidency than I did. And so I hadn't at this point.
So let's pause there because everything got mangled. Again, the question is, where are you keeping your files? He said, well, This was 2017. Well, my son Bo was either deployed or dying. Bo died in 2015. His deployment was many years before that. All right. People were encouraging me as I left the Senate to run for president, except for Obama. He was referring to the President Obama because he thought she had a better chance of winning. All right. Well, he wasn't leaving the Senate. He was the vice president at the time. Also, number two, the people encouraging him to run, except Obama, who thought Hillary had a better chance. Well, that was 2015, not 2017. So it all gets completely mangled. This is pathetic and awful, and it was covered up. For years, this has been covered up. Oh, Julie, you're going to want to turn your mic on if you talk to me.
I'm sorry. I will say it's not. When you think about it, like the average person probably would mix up dates. But this is a guy that was running for president. Again, if you have these kinds of holes in your memory when you're 80 something years old and you're under pressure at answering these questions and you kind of mess them up, fine. But this is a guy that was presented as top of his game, better than ever, ready to lead the free world. I mean, this is what's so disturbing to people is that aspect of it. It's enraging.
Absolutely enraging. We'll talk to Tom Fitton about this later in the program at 6:35 and Joe DeGeneva at 7:05. Right now it's 5:52. All right, coming up, we've got more on Biden, on the cover-up, on Jake Tapper, and how he helped me sell a lot of books this weekend. Plus, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino sat with an exclusive interview. Maria Bartiromo will give you the details. A lot of it surprising. Next.